Hey, welcome live on the channel. Had to make this video because I watched the Kirk Franklin documentary Father's Day, and I wanted to make a video to talk about some thinking points to learn from this documentary. Any age, middle age, older, just either side of the fence. I looked at it from an objective standpoint. I'm not for to poke holes in Kirk Franklin. I think he had a lot of courage to even do this documentary. But one of the biggest takeaways is choices and decisions and thinking can set you up or set you back. Whether you're adult, whether you're a child, whether you're middle age, or whether you're older age. As a culture, we have to strive to make better decisions. Um, Nobody's perfect, but we can all strive to be better. Everybody always say that nobody's perfect, and nobody's not. But with the help of God, we can all strive to make better decisions. So, with that being said, when you think about Kirk Franklin, not having a relationship with his father, not even knowing who his father was, I want you to think about that when you're in your community or when you're around people. There may be other people that's going through that same exact thing. They're just not talking about it or outright saying anything about their relationship with their parents or absent dad or growing up in a single parent household. I know for me, um, that's why I'm so passionate about this podcast, the Thinking Game. What a logo is right there. I'm so passionate about that. Is that I grew up with my father. My father passed away when I was 12 years old. I think I was in sixth grade, and it's not easy growing up without your father, your biological father. It's not easy. Matter of fact, I think it affected me more as I get older because you wish you can have somebody that's your flesh and blood. You can bounce ideas off of. They can understand who you are because you're from that person. But not having that person in your life does make a difference. I don't care what nobody says. It does. It does make a difference. However, when you look at the stat that 41 or 40% of kids are born to unmarried women or out of wedlock without a father in America, we have to change that stat. We have to bring that down. It's so important to have a relationship, a marriage, before you have kids. We're looking at the results of it now, but it's so important. I tell the young people it's so important to do that. But before you even get to that, you have to think about who are you dealing with? Who are you getting involved with? Why are you getting involved with this person? Does this person fit you? Um, Before you start um, getting into sex, and I need to start thinking about who am I getting into a relationship with, so we can decrease this 40% of kids born out of wedlock. One thing, um, any parent, when your kids get older, they may not know when they're younger, but when they start getting older and start living life on their own, a lot of times they start connecting dots. And as you can see, I think they probably didn't touch on it a lot, but um, when your kids get to a certain age, it's just certain things you just can't say and it'll get you by. You can't, BS with your kids, bull crap with your kids, and think they just gonna take that answer and just keep rolling. And that's why I said earlier, choices and decisions and thought processes are so important to learn when you're younger. That accountability piece. And when I talk about these points, I'm doing it with no judgment at all. I'm just doing it from an objective standpoint to make an example. to understand when you make a choice and then other people are involved, at some point, you have to take the accountability. I know for me, when I messed up, I made mistakes, had to take accountability for that, had to apologize for that, I had to repent for that. But when you don't, when your ego is so big that you can't admit that you made a mistake or you can't say I'm sorry, sometimes you can devastate things that are around you because of that ego, because of your unwillingness to say I messed up and I didn't do things right at this point. One thing that stood out and it really glared out when I watched it is when he met his father and he got the DNA test, his father apologized to him. He said, I'm sorry that I wasn't in your life. I'm sorry that I didn't know. But he apologized to his son. Growing up in the inner city, people argue this, but I'm saying sometimes there are situations that you do not hear apologies from older male figures that are older than you. I'm not saying all, I'm saying some, I'm not saying all. But when you go through those cycles of, people doing things and they never give you an apology, they just act like things supposed to just keep going. They don't realize they're destroying things. They're making tension and crazy cycles of things that's gonna keep getting passed down to generations. And I give my hat off to his father that apologized to his son and his grandson for not being in their life because he could have had an ego. He could have rationalized on why he didn't do it instead of just, you know, giving them an apology. So that stood out. Um, a male, older male, elder figure apologizing to the younger because a lot of times that's just not the case. Another thing I thought that was really tough it's really tough is the other side of dealing with your ego. Unfortunate. I hate it for Kirk. Um, he had a DNA test that said that this man was 99.99% his father, but his mother denied the results, even when the DNA said that this was his father. She denied it all the way to the end. I mean, and that I think that really cut him deep because the science, the numbers said that he was the father, but his mother said that that's not your dad. Now, the thing that makes this complex is you love your parents, you want to honor your parents. But when situations like this happen, it make it real tough to process things because it's like what what's going on here? Like why? What happened to honesty? What's being withheld? And that's when it comes down to choices and decisions and the thinking process. And that's why I'm telling you, when things like this happen, um, when there's no honesty involved or people withholding information, kids start connecting dots. Because one thing that I found that was real interesting is his dad said, I'm saying this without judgment, but he said that he didn't know that, he was that, you know, it sounded like he said he didn't even know that she had a kid. And I'm not saying he a liar. I'm not saying that he did. But I'm saying as a kid, if you tell a man that's been looking for his father, and you tell him that, like, what do you think the thoughts that go through his head? He said he didn't know. And then when you notice, They didn't even his father, his mother, I don't even think they made unless they edited, they didn't even make eye contact with each other. Another sign, what's not being said, what's not being discussed, what's going on here. And then his dad apologized again, gave him a hug, walked out, and his mother still denied that he was the father, even with the DNA results being right there, saying 99.99%. And I'm telling to my young people, I'm 40, 40 and younger. Um, don't let your ego come between you and your kids' relationship. Don't let your ego be so big that you can't apologize, that you can't say that I got it wrong right here. I didn't do things right here. Because when you don't do that, a kid could see that and say, well, if they didn't say they was wrong, why am I gonna say I'm wrong? Now it start passing down. Now they do their kids the same way. Unless they have a changed mindset and realize that, I need to be upfront with my kids because kids needs to see their humanity from their parents. That's what they learn from their parents. That's who you're around mostly are your parents. But when you make decisions and you deal with people, that's why you have to really think and understand who you're dealing with because it just lets you know that just because you lay down with a man, that doesn't you can't feel entitled or expect that he's gonna be there to take care of you because it's just not the case. Especially when you don't have a commitment in marriage. Especially when he's willing to lay down with you and not even discuss the possibility or show any kind of commitment. Because what I want you to think about is he said he didn't even know. He didn't know. Anybody, any man who's ever been with a woman, um, you either have to be cold blooded or you have to, you've been with a lot of women that you just don't remember. But most guys remember, um, unless, like I said, unless you like Will Chamberlain or something, but most guys remember who they've been with or who they, unless you just been like, the run of the mill, you just all over the place. But the thing I have a hard time to think about is, did he ever see him while Kirk Franklin was growing up, or even seeing him on TV and be like, wait a minute, that that kid looked like me because he looked like his dad. When he's standing next to his dad, he looks like his dad. And I don't know, I just sometimes kids think about these kind of things. I'm not trying to judge, I'm just trying to tell you how the thought process go. This thinking game, like when his dad told him, I didn't know, I'm sorry. And I get the apology, I get it. But when you say I didn't know, some young men are gonna find that hard to accept. Yes. And he did take accountability and apologize. He did. I was reading the comment, he did. But that does the accountability piece and the part it still doesn't stop the kid from going through the thought process of why was I adopted? Why did my dad come and get me when my mom left me for adoption? It doesn't answer the questions that goes through the head. He even said this in the documentary. He still struggled with that he was adopted. He was raised by somebody that wasn't his biological parents. Not knowing who his dad was. The way he found out that could have been his dad was a rumor. spreading around the community. And that's the thing, like somebody younger, but when you're an adult, you say I took accountability and apologize, but it still take time to get over the thought process of why do I feel like I've been abandoned? Because he said he grew up right down the street, or his house was right down the street from his studio. But who's to say that? I'm not saying it happened, but who's to say that see he was young? That could possibly be my kid. Who's to say that? Who's to say Kirk Franklin didn't even think that? Like he could have saw me when I was a teenager, when I was a kid, and he didn't even try to resolve this when we was younger. Why now? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm trying to tell you that how people work, how things work. It's tough. You know what I'm saying? And I'm talking from a person who grew up without a father. I mean, it's things that go through my head, like, you know, decision making. How do you get in these situations? How does things happen? When is enough enough? But I say it again, it's still good that he apologized. I think that went a long way. But what I'm trying to say is we have to be careful and we have to be upfront with our kids. We can't have that ego that because I'm your dad, I'm always right. I don't never make a mistake because I'm your dad. That's the really the point I'm trying to make. Like as parents, you have to make the right decisions because it can affect your kids if you don't make good decisions, solid decisions. It can affect your kids. Yep. Another comment. We're gonna talk about this on a podcast, but I want to talk about it right now while it's on my mind. Some of the stuff I was thinking about is he said even when you apologize or do the right thing after the fact, Steve gotta deal with the consequences. I'm sorry, you still gotta deal with the consequences of your action. And I think that's the part where that's what I'm trying to say. The consequences is your son, just putting a general scenario, your son still will have questions about, how did y'all meet? Was it on good terms? Was it on bad terms? How did y'all meet? What happened that she didn't tell you that she was pregnant? I'm telling you, like the possibilities and thoughts when you get older, you start connecting dots. You understand how life works. So, did you just and then you just split? You just never saw her again? Just disappeared? Or did y'all live in the same town and then you just avoided her? You just never know. But that kind of stuff will run through people's head. So the thing is, we have to be careful with our decision making. Um, even me, I try to be very careful about dealing with my kids. I try to be very careful. Um, I don't want them to feel like because I'm their dad, I'm always right. Um, I don't never make a mistake. I'm not gonna ever, apologize to my kids because I'm their dad. I don't have to apologize. That kind of ego, I'm telling you, it will shape your kids in a way that you wouldn't imagine. And then as parents, we can't assume that our kids are gonna get older and just pick up life and take off. It don't work that way. You have to have these conversations with your kids about life, about making good decisions, about pick a spouse, what it takes to pick a spouse. It's not just flipping a coin, heads or tails, and this one I'm gonna roll with. When you're talking about spending the rest of your life with somebody, you really got to sit down and think about: is this person compatible? Are we compatible to spend the rest of our life with each other? And you got all the time in the world. You shouldn't let somebody pressure you into doing something like that when if you haven't done your due diligence to realize, are we compatible for each other, or am I setting up a train wreck waiting to happen? Because you got to have the mindset. And I don't know how I even got off into that, but man, you got to think about who you're talking to, though, who you're dealing with, because you can look at this so many ways. And we'll talk about this on the podcast. We'll try to do that Thursday, um, and really kind of dissect it. But I really want to talk about it. Decision making. It can affect you. It can affect you because even after apologizing, you think about all those years that you can't get back. Um, the bond that you build, you can build it, but it's not gonna be as fortified as if you would have, been in his life when he was younger. As a dad, you think about those things. Like I couldn't imagine not being in my son's life. I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. I can't imagine that because I understand the torment that he could go through by me not having my dad, after 12 years old. When you were a kid, you know, you get to be around your parents, but they're working and stuff. They're kind of on the move. But you understand as you get older, it's like a mixed bag of emotions. He's like, man, if I could have talked to my dad when I was 22, about some things about life, it probably would have made me a totally different person. But not everybody has the mentality to keep moving, not having or lack thereof in their life. Not everybody is that way. And like I say, shout out to Kirk Franklin for making that documentary because I'm telling you, there are a lot of guys that are around you, or people that are around you that you see that are going through that very exact thing, and they don't talk about it, or they have struggles that they deal with that is hard to articulate. So that's why I'm glad he released this documentary because there are a lot of guys who deal with this, a lot of families who deal with this kind of stuff. And that's what I'm saying to young parents, like, don't let your ego get so big that you can't apologize to your kids, that you can't tell them that daddy or mommy made a mistake because you can harden your kids and they could pass that down to their kids. And now we in the same cycle over and over again. But I want to change that cycle. That's the thinking game. I want to change the cycle of families, change the cycle of going into a career, like the cycle of understanding why education is important. We want to change that cycle. And I'm gonna stop right here, but we will talk about it more in the podcast, the Thinking Game podcast on Thursday. Um, let me know what you think about this live stream I just did. Let me know what you think about decisions can set you up or set you back. Decisions can cause uh, heartache. The results from decisions anyway cause heartache. But thank God and praise to God that he apologized to Kirk because it seemed like Kirk there was a wound that he really had to work on. And a lot of kids in the inner city uh, you can't afford to go to a therapist consistently. That's not an option due to resources and the cost of going to a therapist. A lot of people can't even afford to go get medical care. So, going to therapy, that's like a secondary medical care. So, but and they don't have the resources to deal with, not having a lack thereof. So a lot of times, they deal with things in a different way because they don't have an outlet to go to. But man, shout out to Kirk Franklin for making this documentary. But I just wanted to say that though, it's like sometimes the generations before us, they go through things and they have things in life, and the generation after don't know anything about it. All we know is what we see. And he said, "How did this happen?" or "How did that happen?" And then you don't know until you get older. Then you start connecting the dots. You say, "Oh, okay, I kind of see how this situation could have happened." You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm telling you, in the inner city, a lot of young black men are going through that same documentary situation that Kurt Franklin's going through. I mean, when you think about families, how many people do you know, or even yourself, can trace your family back? Honestly, can say, "I know my dad, I know my dad's dad, and I know my dad, my grandpa, my great grandpa." How many people do you know or yourself can do that? Honestly, can trace it back. And that's the kind of stuff we dealing with. Like I say, 40% of kids are born out of wedlock to fatherless homes. We have to change that stat. We have to do better. To the men, we got to do better. And we got to make better choices on who we deal with. Like I said, I've been married for 11 years, but before I got married, um, I didn't make good choices. I was out there, man, but I had to come to a point where I had to line up if I wanted to have a family and do it right and have a family and not be scattered all over the place. I didn't want to put my kids through that and have a blended family. I just didn't want to do that because I grew up in that, and it's not easy growing up in a blended family. People make it seem like it's that way, but it's not. It's a lot. So, with that being said, I'm gonna close out. Be sure to check in for the podcast Thursday. We're gonna talk about that a little bit, the documentary. But I wanted to get these thoughts off while they're fresh on my mind, so I can come up with some more topics. And let me know in the comments what you think about this, and if you subscribe to YouTube, help us get to 1K subscribers. Go to our Facebook page, CTM TV, YouTube, CTM TV Little Rock. I think on Instagram, CTM TV Little Rock, and TikTok, CTM TV Little Rock. Subscribe, help us grow. We want to spread youth. We want to give back positive information to our youth. Get them to understand the importance of education, making good decisions and solid choices. This is Mike. I'm signing out. Thanks for watching.